Yeah.
Okay.
When I went to
Did you something nice for your mom? Something nice for your mom.
My mom was home yesterday.
So no?
You guys are here. I have to take
She
a picture
was
for
up in
Katie.
Faribault.
Like, okay.
That's my hometown.
I know. That's her hometown too.
I was not.
But yeah, I was not good.
She's a Dun?
Yeah.
I'm
She's a
surprised I didn't know who she was for a second. That hit me. So I was just,
Small world, isn't it?
So I was just talking like, yeah, I know you.
Putin's powerful.
Okay. Here we go.
Can
Can we put our phones really very incredibly away? Not like last Friday away when many of us were sort of silly. Really away.
Sort of silly.
Super duper away.
Putin's power.
Amazingly away, not to be seen anymore. And books.
I don't think so, but
So just as a reminder of as far as stuff that's due in here, just to make sure that you are on the up and up, I have received, as of now, 3 papers, which I'm not criticizing you because they aren't due yet. Feel free to turn them in whenever you can. They'll be entered into Infinite Camp. Did we say Friday? Is that what we said? Friday? Okay. And then there was also something called Test D. I don't remember when I said that I would put that into Infinite Campus. Was that also a Friday? That was last Friday. Oh.
I think so.
Oh, yeah, it's already in there.
Yeah, it's 'cause it's in the grade book.
Okay, it's in the grade book. Many of you haven't done it yet. That's all right. And now listen, this is new. This is new. This will be entered into Mr. Infinite Campus by the end of the hour Friday, and it's called Exam A. It's called Exam A. It's on Kia. Take it as often as you want. I'll take the best score. It tells you after you answered it if you got it right, so you'd be able to, I don't know, work your magic and get them all right somehow. It tells you what you got was right if it's right. And you can open multiple tabs on your computer.
And there's Google.
It's not cheating if it's allowed. Learn. Okay. That'll be entered into Infinite Campus Friday. Any questions on stuff?
Why is it called Test A if it's like the last test?
I mixed it up. Yes.
How are we supposed to rely on?
Nope. It'll tell you what it's basically on. I can tell you.
Wait.
It's on. Do you remember learning about how other countries handle terrorism?
Why?
What Germany does, what Israel does, what Italy does? Do you remember talking about military tribunals? Remember having a debate? Most of you voted for my side. Okay. Do you remember having a discussion about whether or not it's fair to target civilians? International Criminal Court. So that sort of thing. What's up, dear?
Are there going to be like per question, like your number one?
No?
And if so, what are the
It's
answers?
entirely possible. I don't remember.
You probably won't.
Anyone else? Okay. There will also be something that you learn about today, which is optional. You don't have to do it. But if you are one of these people that digs conspiracy theories, I got something for you. Okay. Perfect. All right. Starting today and continuing for the rest of the year, what we'll do is we'll sort of go around the world and see what's going on right now. This is very much a current event sort of thing. We're trying to kind of put together where is U.S. military involved, and then kind of why are we there, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll visit 2 slides today, and then I'm going to shift gears and show you the conspiracy theory thingy, and then we'll call it a day. So before I continue here, who's this guy?
Vladimir Putin,
Who is that?
leader of Russia.
Okay, so Vladimir Putin is the leader of Russia. And I'm now showing you a map of Ukraine. So this thing here, that's Ukraine. Ukraine used to be one of the republics of the Soviet Union, but seceded and became its own country. This map is sort of interesting, though, because we're looking at this, and I want you to pay attention to the yellow area and the brownie area. Okay. This body of water right here is the Black Sea. It is the body of water where the Soviet Navy dominated. That's the one area where the Soviets dominated in naval matters. Okay, but when Ukraine secedes, who becomes the owner of the Soviet Navy, which was based on this peninsula right here? Right, this body of land right here, that's part of Ukraine. They secede. Well, then who owns the Navy that's based on this body of land and monitors this body of water? Give me a couple possibilities. Ukraine. They would say, like, it's ours. This is our land. The Navy was based here. It's ours. And that's exactly what they said. Yes? Why? Yes, but why? Yeah, you're exactly right. Russia said, actually, it's ours. Yeah, we're all part of the Soviet Union, but we were the Soviet Union. We, Russia, said we were the Soviet Union. So you've got basically two possible answers. The reason I point out the yellow area is because, just keep in mind here, Russia's over here. The yellow area represents people of Ukraine who are of Russian ethnicity. Also in brown, Russian ethnicity. Okay, how many of you are Irish? Raise your hand if you're Irish. How many Germans? Let's go with, all right, German's a better one then. Now, how many of you are American? Ethan, you just raised your hand 30 seconds ago telling me you were German. And now you're raising your hand that you're an American. Which is it? How? Explain.
Because my ancestors are from Germany, but I was born in America.
Okay, very good. So one is your national identity and one is your ethnic identity. Same thing here. These people are ethnically Russian. Their ancestors were from Russia, but they live in Ukraine. So they are ethnically Russian and nationally Ukrainian. And now here comes the dilemma. Russia invaded, just a couple of years ago, invaded parts of Ukraine, arguing that these people want to be part of Russia. They don't want to be part of Ukraine. By the way, that's exactly the same thing Hitler said when he invaded Poland, that the people of Western Poland were ethnically German, and as a result want to be part of Germany, do not want to be part of Poland. So that's the situation, that the Russians have invaded eastern Ukraine and this little peninsula here, giving the Russians access to all that water. And what is our response? Well, our response is you can't do that, Russia. Why not? Why can't Russia invade its former fellow Soviet republics? After all, when South Carolina seceded, did Lincoln say, darn, oh, well, nope, he invaded. Lincoln invaded the South because he argued they did not have the right to secede. Well, what's the difference? Ian, go ahead.
But Russia isn't the Soviet Union anymore.
That's a good point. Very good. So that's exactly what the U.S. said. Hey, this isn't Soviet Union anymore. They were part of the Soviet Union. They were not part of Russia. Of course, they countered, yeah, but these people are Russian. But you're right. Very good. Okay. So that's what I'm trying to say here, that the EU, that's the European Union, and the United States are trying to say to Russia, Russia, you don't get to do whatever you want. You need to be obeying international laws. And one of the international laws is the law that says you can't just invade your neighbor's cuz. So that's the idea of international order. And then now I'm showing you the reality. The reality is that we can do very little about it. Unless you're willing to die for Ukrainians. Are American soldiers ready to fight and die for Ukrainians? Probably not. So that's the reality. The reality is this is right next to Russia. The U.S. has very little impact here. It's part of the Russian sphere of influence. Another fact is that these people probably do want to be part of Russia. That's probably true. It's like northern Minnesotans. They really want to probably be Canadian. Well, too bad, right? That's not going to happen, but it did seem to happen here. I think what's going on here is that Putin, the leader of Russia, sees the end of the Cold War as a giant mistake, that the Soviets never should have crumbled, and he's going to fix it. So he's going to re-influence his neighbors, and starting with here. So you'll see there that this is called Crimea. It's the home of the Russian Navy. The other way that Russia sort of has the Ukrainians in a precarious position is that's where the Ukrainians get their fuel. So if the Ukrainians say actually confront the Russians can just cut off the fuel supply. And you might say, well, why don't the Ukrainians just get their fuel from Western Europe? It's a little bit more complex than that because there are actually like pipelines that are in place here. So this is the reality. This is what's going on. The Russian army is right now militarily occupying this. It basically has taken it, just took it. And the world, the United Nations condemned them and sent them a very stern letter and wagged their fingers a bunch. And that's it. What are we going to do? Are we gonna sanction Russia? Are we gonna refuse to trade with the Russians?
Want to live
What an
in peace.
entrance.
One slide left, and then we'll show you what I think many of you will consider to be sort of interesting stuff. You are looking at the Syrian civil war. So Syria is a country in the Middle East, and you'll notice that it's kind of a confusing map here, but there's kind of a brown area and a red area and a yellow area. And basically these are religious groups. Now, if you were to have a map of the United States religiously, it'd be the rainbow, right? There's no country on earth with more religions. But we don't go to war with each other based on religion. Unlike in other parts of the world where that's exactly what happens. What we have in Syria is a religious-based war. There are certain religious groups that want Syria to cease to exist as a country and have it become a religious-based, I'm going to call it a caliphate, not a country anymore, Islamic radical-based area. So you're looking at, here's the Middle East. This is the area in question, Syria. So I'm going to go back. Here's Syria up close. Here's Syria. It's been basically torn apart because of this religious-based civil war. Now let's start just looking at, again, what we're doing right now is looking at the reality of what's going on right now around the world. We just spent 5 minutes talking about what's going on in Ukraine. And now let's look at the Middle East. Well, let's just kind of travel around the Middle East. The country that's just off the map, good map I chose here, sorry. But just off the map is a country called Libya. Libya has no central government. There is no functioning civil central government in Libya. We have a central government. It's our national government. It's our federal government. There's really no functioning central government in Libya. Instead, what we have are smaller, just kind of tribes. Good luck becoming the leader of that country when all you can say is, please listen to me. And if you don't listen to me, tomorrow I'll ask you to listen to me again. Right? There's no power. It's like Jefferson Davis. Jefferson Davis was the leader of the Confederacy. You know what his biggest problem was? The fact that it was a Confederacy meant no one had to listen to him. Right? And if we don't like what you're saying, we can just secede. And if Jefferson Davis said, you can't secede, a state like Georgia would say, what do you mean we can't secede? That's what this country's based on. Secession. And Jefferson would be like, damn it. Well, let's keep going. Egypt. This just happened a few years ago. Egypt had an election. They elected a leader, democratically elected person, and the military didn't like him, so they deposed him. And the U.S. was in this odd position. Because he was democratically elected, we should have said, yay, democracy. But his position on issues was anti-American. He did not like American military presence. So when the military overthrew him, the U.S. was sort of like, boo, right? We didn't really like the guy, but we're not exactly in favor of a military take over either, so that's
Why
sort of a
not?
confusing thing. Yemen. This is a mess. Yemen has no central government. You know what a proxy war is?
No.
Yeah, you have
What is a proxy war, Ethan Oman?
war with like other countries, like there's the two big countries, and
Yep.
then there's the other little countries.
Very good. A proxy war is where neither of the warring parties are directly fighting each other, but my pawns fight your pawns. What we have here is a proxy war between the Saudis and the Iranians. The Saudis support one side in this civil war in Yemen. The Iranians support the other side. So it's like the Saudis and the Iranians are fighting each other, but they're not fighting each other. It's just like the Cold War, right? The Soviets and the Americans never fought each other officially. Instead, our pawns fought their pawns. There's a local Cold War going on here. And we can get into, well, why? What is their disagreement? It's basically religious.
This map
It's
is
the Sunni Shiite difference. This is a map from 2011 to question mark, question mark, question mark. Okay.
It says 1997 on the bottom.
Does anyone recall what the domino theory was?
Yeah.
What was it?
One country falls to some. Yeah,
What?
countries.
Falls to what?
Communism.
Communism. Okay. They want an election in Egypt. That's good. That's democracy. If they have an election, then the people in Saudi Arabia will want an election. And if they have an election, maybe the people in Iraq will want an election. And if they want it, it'll spread. This was called the Arab Spring. 2011, 2012. Yep. There was hope that democracy would spread because our country had an election and maybe that would spread to other things. Hasn't happened. Because this is what we want. We want democracy. This is what other people want. Tribalism. And I've talked about this many times in here, but just to reiterate, our view of the world is a world of countries where people are free and you can choose your own government and there's law and order. Other people around the world say no. They would rather have what are called tribes, not nations. That's why I call this a world war. It's World War IV. Our view of the way the world should be versus up 4. World War IV. 4. World War I was the war of ism, empiricism. World War II was a war over fascism. World War III was a war over capitalism, communism. And yes, it was. It was a world war. And World War IV is our current conflict. Nationism, which is what we believe in, versus tribalism, which is what some of these radical groups
I mean,
believe.
if you view history as like a big conflict between two ideologies, and we're in like World War 80.
Well, I'm going to disagree with Will.
Really?
He said if you call something a world war based on isms, then we're on World War 80. Not long ago, global influence was fairly limited. But I will agree with you that we're probably on World War like 9.
What about like Greekism versus?
Yeah, but that's
Persianism.
centralized to that area.
That was the world back then to them.
To them.
To them.
And to like most people.
No,
To
not most
states,
people.
to
You're
what we-
wrong. Will's wrong.
To what
158.
to what we view as states,
We got him.
that was the world.
Or more Chinese.
So it was a single Chinese
Scared me.
empire. It was Persia,
Sort of.
Greece, and
Okay.
China.
Any questions?
Civilization.
That's my goal.
All right, give me a second here. I need to
You don't know if I'm
blow you
gonna
I
away.
don't.
You don't know if I'm just gonna
You don't.
you know, I'm gonna smack you.
You never know. Just stop. No.
Now, I'm going to show you some examples and then I'm going to explain. And I think some of you might have fun with this. This is totally optional.
No, you stop.
I'm going to explain to you this group called the Illuminati, which, by the way, does not really exist. So drop it. But
The Illuminati is real.
I will tell you that the Illuminati has a plan to take over the world. After all, just look at the dollar bill. There's all sorts of symbols. Whose eye is that? Exactly. The symbol. By the way, do not do it or you will get a call tonight at about 3 a.m.
Don't do what?
Anything. In 1800, Jefferson ran for the presidency. And he was accused of being part of the Illuminati. which was started in France. And Jefferson had a love affair with the French. And obviously, anybody who has a love affair with the French is a little bit off. And so that was evidence that he was part of the Illuminati, which was during this period called the Age of Enlightenment. And he was part of the Age of Enlightenment. And as a result, he is part of the Illuminati. You see, if A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C. Perfect logic. Okay. And Illuminati means light. And Jefferson was the minister to France. And the Illuminati overthrew the king, Louis XVI. And he supported the separation of church and state. He himself was anti-Christian. And that Jefferson is evil.
Sounds about right.
And now I'm going to prove to you that there was this other group called the Freemasons, and their plot to take over the world.
They actually exist, though.
Yeah, and the Illuminati don't. So drop it, Will. Drop it. This is a history of man throughout the ages, according to a guy by the name of Karl Marx, that there's always conflict between power groups, the church, the military, the aristocracy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In the 1820s, the Freemasons were accused of wanting to destroy America. Just watch it. And now I'm going to show you the plot that the Catholic Church is trying to take over the world. That is the Pope, how he really looks. Kind of like Daenerys last night, for those of you who watch. Did you know that the Catholic Church teaches this thing called papal infallibility, which means on certain issues, the Pope cannot be wrong. It is impossible.
But no, actually, didn't he just rescind that? Like,
no, he was wrong then. Did you know that a huge influx of Catholics moved to the United States in the 1820s? Obviously to take over the United States. So Catholics just need to get a Catholic elected president, which they almost did. And they did do in 1960 with Kennedy. And look what happened to Kennedy. They took him out. The anti-Catholics took him out.
only 2 years.
It was the Catholics who got rid of the Jews.
Didn't Hitler prosecute Catholics?
And now the Jewish plan to take over the world.
Well, hold on.
This is a book actually produced in the late 1800s called The Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion. And this is a web of lies that the Jewish people put together in order to take over the world. The Jews are everywhere and nowhere. The Jews attacked us on 9/11 so that we would go and attack Jewish enemies in the Middle East. They set us up. They did it so that we would punish their enemies.
This is on camera.
Why do you want to crash?
I know that.
World Trade Center. They have to make some also.
And if you drive a Ford, Henry Ford, the founder of Ford Motor Companies, he believed that the Jews were behind it. I mean, after all, what created Israel? The United Nations created Israel, an international organization dedicated to protecting that group of people, the Jews.
I thought the Illuminati weren't real.
And now the communists plot to take over the world.
Are they just like groups working in tandem, separately? Like,
It's all part of the plan.
what plan?
I would like to talk to you about brave patriot Joseph McCarthy, who uncovered the plot of the communists to take over the world. Unions, strikes, violence. It's all part of the plan, man. The commies are coming to take over the world. And now the plot by the New World Order plot to take over the world plot. They're all in it together.
And Rockefeller?
He's up there.
You see, it starts with the UN, an international organization, and Israel's part of the UN, and the Jews control Israel. That means the Jews control the UN, and since the UN controls the world, that means the Jews control the world. See that? The more Swiss cheese, the more holes. The more holes, the less cheese. Therefore, the more cheese, the less cheese. Figure your way out of that. 9/11 was part of it, you see. U.S. needed to invade the Middle East to get the oil, so we attacked ourselves. We attacked ourselves
Didn't you just
to
say that?
give us permission to attack the Arabs in the Middle East.
This was like actually.
Yay! And now the federal government's plan to take over the country. The government wants to control the country. Yes, the federal government. This is Waco, Texas. This is the Branch Davidians. This is the federal building in Oklahoma City. It happened because the ATF tried to take my guns, and I loves my guns, and my dog, and my truck, and my flag, and my truck, and my dog, and my wife, and my other wife. But brave, noble patriot Timothy McVeigh, he struck back. He struck back. This is what the federal government did. This was the actions of Timothy McVeigh, patriot, who bravely struck back at the ATF and struck them down into the hole from whence they came, the hole of hell. See, feds trying to take your guns and your land. Do you know that the federal government actually owns about 90% of California? It's true. You look at a map. Look at land in California. Almost all of Nevada. Almost all of it. And it's just a matter of time before they take your land. You ever heard of this thing called eminent domain? Eminent domain. They can take your land. They can take your land. They can take your guns. They can take your land and your dog and your truck and your flag and your wife and your other wife. There's the map. The redder the state, the more the federal government owns of it. So the United States government owns about 85% of Nevada. According to this, almost half of California, 29% of Montana, 5.6% of Wisconsin. And they're moving this way, people.
Well, of course they are.
They're moving. Stop using logic. They're moving this way.
But it has nothing to do with the fact that those states were started after westward expansion.
I want to show you. I want to show you some common characteristics of all of these things. One, our way of life is being threatened by them. Them. Our and them. Very common pronouns used in these things. The language of we need to take it back, which means it's not in our hands right now, but it soon will be thanks to vigilance. Let's take it back. Every bad event is evidence that it's true. I don't want to answer the question I think you're about to ask. Any bad event is evidence that it's true. And before you, a logical person, say, I don't think so, where's the proof that the burden of proof is on you to prove that it's not true. This is what these people do. It's all part of the plan. See, it all fits together. We call this a conspiracy here, right? There's always secrecy. There's a secret group that explains the plot and the brilliance. See, because Kennedy's assassination was this big, which could not have been done by someone this big. The bigger the event, the bigger the explanation must be. Big event, big explanation. Okay? There is the secret society that they're all powerful. They're in every level of government, and they are evil. Every villain is lemons.
I am going to look at these videos.
And the thing is, we have to wake up. We American patriots need to wake up before it's too late.
No, I need my shoe back. And if I don't get these,
The reason I'm showing you all this is because you have the right optional. You do not have to do this. It is due 1 week from today. If you want. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. But if you want to do it, you have the right to present to the class any conspiracy theory that you want, as long as the presentation does not embarrass me if my boss is in here. It's all bonus.
Mr. Potter.
It's out of 0 points.
So you get 1 out of 0.
No, it's not 1 or 0. I'll give you up to 10 points, but it's 10 out of 0, and it's summative. It goes to where your tests go. Okay.
But doesn't
You also have permission to work with a partner if you want. What you do not have permission to do is do everything, and then someone says, "Hey, can I have half that credit?" Don't do that. If you're in a partnership, each of you does it 50-50, like Bubba and Forrest Gump. Do 1 week from today. Also, remember, test A. That's new. I am done. What time is this class over? 20 minutes, right?
2:30.
2:30, yep. Those computers are ours. All of you have to do test A. So there's no way that nobody has anything to do. That's not possible. If you want, make up a conspiracy theory presentation. It's due 1 week from today.
Can we use one that exists?
You make up anything you want. Last year, the best one I've ever seen was Osterhus. Anyone remember that kid?
Yeah.
He had an awesome presentation proving that Barack Obama was an alien. It was awesome. I know. Any questions? Okay, you got 20 minutes to get started if you wish.
Mr. Potter has been dealing drugs in the government for a very long time. I mean, he always uses examples. I mean, he's always out of school really quick at the end of the day.